are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel, smash the like button if you like our content, share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost college football channel with a donation. Hit the $, make a comment, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody. 4th of July, happy Independence Day. Come on into the studio. You want fireworks? I'll deliver a couple of those, what do you call those? Sprinklers? Whatever. Come on into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. Jacobra Cat ranked these schools by their relationship with Notre Dame. Stanford, Duke, Miami, Georgia Tech, Hokies, California, Texas A&M, and Kansas. Should anyone else be added? Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate your incredible generosity right at the beginning of the show. I really cannot really get into that right now. Unfortunately, that creeps into the part of the story that I'm not able to talk about. Obviously, Stanford would be up there. Miami, Georgia Tech. But basically every school should be thinking about that. But I'm sorry, and I know you, I know Jacobra Cat, you're very generous at the beginning of the show, and I got to decline answering that question. Maybe my declining that answer to that question gives you some sort of answer, a bigger answer. Relationships are going to be the most important component in the next realignment wave after the ACC implodes. I have said it. I said it 4 live shows ago. I said it 3 live shows ago. I said it 2 live shows ago. I said it 1 live show ago. And I'm saying it tonight. In fact, if you look at the description box, that is the sentence that I put in there. In fact, we're going to push the envelope even a little bit further tonight. I've given the winks. I've given the nods on why we had to do a flip-flop on May 23rd and officially on May 28th. Relationships. And we're look, it's July 4th. I'm not going to waste your time. I know you're eating your hot dogs right now. I know you're eating your burgers right now. I know you're eating your ribs right now. None of it with cheese, by the way. You notice on July 4th, even your hamburgers, nobody really puts their cheese on their hamburgers. They don't put it on their beautiful ribs, their beautiful chicken. They're grilling outside. They're not using cheese on the 4th of July. The 4th of July is the only day left where the cheesification of America hasn't taken over. No cheese on the 4th of July. But we're going to have to push that off to another day. I'm not going to waste your time with a show on the 4th of July if we don't bring the heat to you. We're going to push the envelope even a little bit further tonight on why relationships are so important. And I'm going to give you the Washington, Oregon example. The Washington, look, ask all the Husky fans in the chat room. Ask the Oregon Duck fans in the chat room. They were frustrated with me. They were angry with me because I kept giving them hope. I said the Big Ten was going to expand with Washington and Oregon first before they went to the east, to the southeast. And then other people were saying, Greg, if they would have expanded with Oregon and Washington, they would have already done it. That means they're not going to do it because they haven't done it yet. That's not how the world works, number one. And number two, we gave everybody the reasons why the Big Ten did not go with Oregon and Washington when they picked up USC and UCLA. But they wanted them. They wanted them. But the legal counsel is sitting right there. They're saying, hold on. You move too fast. You got to make the moment last. Big Ten had to wait. Legally, ethically, in their belief, they had to wait. And I reported that to you. But I also told the Washington, Oregon fans, if these things happen, you're in. And it happened. First, Kevin Warren had to leave. He had to leave. He had to leave or it wasn't going to get done. Because the relationship between Kevin Warren and Fox Sports, over. And with other people as well. And then he left. And remember I said the biggest hurdle for Washington and Oregon to get in the Big Ten has just left. Oh, I got raked over the coals. I got raked. It's still not going to happen. Why? Tony Petitti, he's not looking to expand. That's not what he's coming in. He's not doing that. Remember, I got raked over the coals? And I kept saying if the Pac-12 gets poached again by the Big 12, that Oregon and Washington are going to be coming into the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was going to do that before they go to the Southeast. Remember all that? Now, the way that Washington and Oregon did it is the way that it had to be done. Washington and Oregon did it in the way that it had to be done. They respected the process. They knew about the Big Ten's worry. Remember, Washington and Oregon had first-party meetings with the Big Ten months and months and months before they left. They made a decision. The Big Ten got Washington and Oregon on August 4th, 2023. They met months before that. And the Big Ten flatly told Washington and Oregon, we love you. These are the things that Washington you're going to have to do. These are the things that Oregon you're going to have to do. You're vetted and cleared, but we can't take you now. Legally, we cannot take you now. What did Washington and Oregon do? Boy, I got a lot to say. Man, I'm just warming up. You guys, this monologue might take a while, so buckle up, brace for impact. We're going to get to your phone calls when I can. We got some stories we got to get to. There's a whole second half of this first part that I'm going through. Washington and Oregon went back to the Pac-12. Not back to the Pac-12. They were members of the Pac-12. They went to all the meetings in the Pac-12. They tried to find a contract that worked. It wasn't happening. Colorado met with the Big 12 in Chicago May 7th. We had that live show on May 8th. We told you that the Pac-12 got a shot in the solar plexus and they were hanging by a thread and everybody thought I was crazy. And Washington and Oregon kept doing what they needed to do. They could not kick the dirt in their sandbox. They could not. They did it the right way. And then at the very end, when it looked like the Big 12 was going to poach the Pac-12 again. Calls were made, bam, 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 August 4th. And Washington and Oregon came in as a discount. They came in as a discount. Fox paid for it. CBS did not. NBC did not. The other Big Ten schools did not take a little bit off their top. Oregon and Washington did what they had to do in every single way. And then in 6 years from now, in 6 years is going to be here just like that. Washington and Oregon are going to have the beneficiary of doing everything the right way. There has been comments out there. I seen them. People are sending me stuff. Greg doesn't like Florida State no more. Greg doesn't want Florida State no more. Greg is anti-Seminole. All that is absolutely false. I'm on Florida State's side on this. I would love to have Florida State in the Big Ten. It would be fascinating if Florida State went to the SEC. I think Florida State's going to be out of the... it would be fascinating if Florida State went to the SEC. I believe Florida State is going to get out of the ACC. I'm on Florida State's side, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Just like I told Washington and Oregon fans. You see, at the end of the story, Washington and Oregon fans, they did not block me and I did not block them. Do you know why? Because they knew I told them the truth from day one. Same thing with UCLA, USC, same thing with Colorado, and I'm doing the same thing with this story. I'm not able to say everything, but I can tell you I'm going to push the envelope tonight. Relationships matter. You listen to Joe Cassiano, whatever his name is, the athletic director of Oklahoma, having that interview with the SEC saying how important relationships were. Greg Sankey was there as well when Oregon and Texas called the SEC together. Oregon and Texas could have went their own way, but the relationship between Oregon and Texas was so important. And the relationship between Oklahoma and Texas, the relationship between the Sooners and the Longhorns was also very, very important to the SEC. Relationships matter. You can go only so far with charts and spreadsheets. Relationships matter. And I'm going to finish this off at the back end of this monologue, and I'm going to have to give, in my heart of heart, more advice on something that's been going on here. Florida State cannot afford to go scorch earth. They're in the courts. They're doing a great job. They might be pushing the ACC into a settlement. It could be happening right now. The ACC, ESPN doesn't want that media rights agreement, does not want that media rights agreement to have to come out in public. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. John A. Shedd, 1928. I put this up every once in a while. Because it's my favorite. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Florida State and Clemson took their ships out into the open ocean. They were bold. They know they have great value, and they put them out in the ocean. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. However, when you're out in that ocean, when you've taken the bold step to go out on that ocean, you gotta make sure you don't burn all the docks where you can put your ship ashore. Don't burn all your landing spots. We're going to get more into the, that is just a glimpse of what I'm going to be talking about at the back end of this monologue, because we got a lot to get to, and I honestly, somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say it. You cannot afford to go scorch earth because people are watching. Hint, hint, nod, nod. I want to go through a roll call here for everybody who's come on in. Tracy FSU, thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry, I did not see that. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you so much, Tracy FSU. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on here. Michael Uten is in the house. Gerald Jones is here. Ryan Brooks, Joe Z, Andrew Krill, thank you so much. Nick Kelsel, Cameron B, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk. We're going to be talking about Kansas here in a little bit. We're going to be talking about Kansas here in a little bit. Michael Uten is in the house. PA No Fan is here. Crab Cakes and Football. Cornelius Green, Stephen McNeely, Coy, Lee Go Gators, George Holton. The Buckshot Kid is here. Daniel Gorby. Happy 4th from Seminole Nation. Happy 4th back to Seminole Nation and Daniel Gorby. Eric Phipps, David Kreitzer, Stephen Vitt, Peter Shields, CFB Plus, Expedition Greg Thomas is in the house. Mr. Bearcat, Steve is here. Kent Woodworth is here. The doctor is in. Mary and Mocha, happy 4th of July to you and everyone. Happy 4th to you. I appreciate you coming on in. Mary and Mocha. Brandon Strickland is in the house. Taylor Mott is here. Sean is here. Thomas Coker is here. Test subject 38. Congo is in the house. KS Bear Fan is back. Sean is here. Old boy Frontrunner 3. Holy smokes. The Architect holding up a beer. The Architect is my kind of guy. Rob HK is in the house. Cheese always belongs on hamburgers, sir. But you notice, well, first of all, that's not true. But you notice there's less cheese on hamburgers on the 4th of July? It is like the last 4th of July celebration is the last bastion of Americana, baby. Of Americana. Thomas is in the house. Clinton Moses is here. R. Webb, no war, Greg, no cheese. Thank you, R. Webb. Appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you so much. Check it out is here. Immaculate is here. The Mr. Hawkeye. P. Lit, Jonathan Price. Sergeant Pickles. Happy birthday, America. Glenn Lawman. Justin R. Okay. All right, let's get to it. I want to talk about, before we get back into, you shouldn't be kicking dirt in the sand. You cannot afford to go scorch earth, Florida State. Before we get into that, because I just went through preliminary stuff. We got more to go through on that. I want to talk about something here. I want to talk about something we first started talking about, I don't know, it's been a while now, about 6 weeks ago. Basketball. Now, this is a college football YouTube channel, but I'm talking about basketball in regards to realignment. And we reported here at Peek Around the Corner that that there is a definite chatter behind the curtain that if and when the SEC goes to 20 schools, that Kansas would be in play. It would, and we said this, we said it'd be beneficial for Kansas, for the SEC, if when the ACC implodes, that the SEC wouldn't go to 4 right now, maybe go 2 later, whatever. But we brought up the idea that yes, Kansas is going to be in play if the Big Ten goes beyond 20. And Kansas is going to be in play when SEC goes to 20. If they go to 20, when they go to 20. And we explain it. We try to explain it because the basketball people inside the industry, outside the industry, everybody believes that the value of college basketball in men's and women's, especially men, but women as well, is going to skyrocket. And therefore, the valuations of some of these athletic departments and programs are going to change some. No. Yes. Football is still going to drive the bus, along with the enrollment apocalypse that is coming upon us for college, for universities. But we had to tell you, we had to give you the peek around the corner that basketball value is going to shoot up. That is the perception out there. And we got raked over the coals here at Peek Around the Corner. A lot of people went out and misreported what we said. The Monty Show said, they said, Greg, he's crazy. The SEC's not talking to Kansas. They're not going to take Kansas. You shouldn't listen to this YouTube channel. Well, we didn't say that the SEC is taking Kansas. We definitely did not say they were talking to Kansas, because they're not. We said Kansas would be in play if and when SEC decides to go to 20 schools. So, of course, they misreported what we said. And they were not the only ones, by the way. Well, since then, we've seen the Big East strike a big deal, that more money than anybody thought. A media deal, way more money than anybody thought. And now a lot of people sent me the Josh Pate statement, which really did not directly say what I said, but Josh Pate on, I think it was his last live show, said, oh, by the way, I'm paraphrasing, but Josh Pate said, by the way, if we're all looking over here in regards to realignment, talking about the ACC implosion, while we're all looking over here about realignment, we should be paying attention about over here, about Kansas. Putting all that money into the football program. Of course, the basketball program is valuable. And he basically stopped it at that. I'm guessing he could have said more. I know a lot of things are being said behind the curtain about it. So again, am I reporting that Kansas is going to be the 20th member of the SEC? I did not say that. Am I reporting that the SEC and Kansas are having first-party talks? They're not. I did not say that. So please, Monty Show and everybody else, at least try to put in the effort to actually, if you're going to report something I said, try to become at least kind of, sort of accurate. And if you can't do that, then just keep college football's peek around the corner out of your show if you cannot quite get there in your reporting. Yeah, so again, I did not peek around the corner. We didn't, like, how do I say this? I didn't just come out here and say, oh, well, Kansas, no, I'm just telling you, that's the chatter. That Kansas valuation is going up. It's going to be up. It's going up. Just like every other basketball program. It's one of the many reasons why North Carolina, North Carolina, they're the number one target for the SEC. One of the reasons, not the biggest reason. Enrollment, stuff like that, biggest state, market, whatever. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole tonight. So if there is a perception that the basketball is going to skyrocket in value, if there's a perception that, not the perception, Big East got paid way more than anybody thought, well then, if Greg Sankey thinks that basketball value is going to go up, your mark, probably private equity, then it's going to trickle on to other places as well. It's going to trickle in to the G5 world as well. Memphis commercial appeal, article yesterday. Pernetti said about Memphis' goal of leaving the conference. Very interesting article, and we're gonna read the words, but we're also gonna read in between the lines, if you know what I'm saying. Again, basketball, the perception is that the value of basketball is going to skyrocket. We've seen some evidence of that with the Big East media deal. And I think we're about going to see other evidence of that as well. Tim Pernetti has a lot on his mind. The new American Athletic Conference commissioner has been on the job for 1 month. He took over from Mike Oresco, who had been the AAC commissioner since the conference inception in 2013, but Oresco retired early this year. Pernetti said his main priority is alignment in making sure everyone in the conference is on the same page. He said he plans to visit the AAC campuses throughout this summer and into the start of the football season. Getting everybody on the same page is 50% of the battle in collegiate athletics, he said. If you get everybody on the same page, there's no saying what you can do. Pernetti spoke with the commercial appeal on Wednesday to discuss Memphis, the AAC, and college athletics as a whole. Commercial appeal, this was the question, how is the conference bracing for the impact to college athletics expected by the settlement in-house versus NCAA paying players? Pernetti gives us basically a standard answer. We all feel strongly that this settlement is important. It also gives us the ability then to spend our time focused on how we're going to build for the future. I think everybody in collegiate athletics with a lot of these challenges has been playing defense. Now we can go on the offense. It's important that it gets accomplished now so we all can move forward. Pretty standard plate answer. Commercial appeal asks the next question. New Memphis athletic director Ed Scott said the Tigers athletic department would opt in to revenue sharing with athletes. Is that something that's been discussed conference-wide? Pernetti. Everybody has their own point of view. I think some institutions in our conference are resourced in different ways than others. What we want to try to avoid is creating competition and gaps in our own league. I don't think you want to avoid creating competition in your own league. You're going to have gaps. As commissioner, it's your job to make the weakest as strong as possible while not hurting the strongest in your conference. It's a difficult, challenging proposition, but that is your goal as the commissioner. You do want that competition. For instance, I'm just throwing it out there, back to Pernetti. The idea of us discussing as a membership, which I think we will, the prospect of revenue sharing within our conference. And should we have an agreed upon conference cap for revenue sharing to try to create as much of a level playing field as we possibly can? Nothing's off the table on that front. Well, first of all, should we have an agreed upon conference cap for revenue sharing to try to create a level playing field? Well, I can tell you, Pernetti, if you do that, you're going to lose. You could possibly lose a Memphis. Where do you view Memphis in the broader landscape of the AAC? It's unique in the fact that it does have a variety of different projects going on right now and support coming in different directions and really give them the opportunity to be a leader in our conference. Memphis has an opportunity to be a leader in the conference. The transfer of ownership of the stadium, the commitment of hundreds of millions of dollars in renovations is huge for them. I think what FedEx stepped up to do for their NIL program, football, $25 million over 5 years, and football coach is doing an incredible job. They're expected to be very competitive. Ed is going to be a great addition to the room, the athletic director. He's got ideas, he's got business acumen, and he's got just tremendous experience in the industry. Commercial appeal. Scott discussed, the athletic director of Memphis, discussed conference realignment in his introductory press conference, even specifically mentioning the ACC and Big 12 as potential destinations. How have you viewed Memphis and its public push to move out of the AAC? Pernetti. I told Scott that on the phone. I said, I expect that they'll be the first question you get. And I think he handled it very well. The thing about conference expansion, it doesn't need to be a dirty word. People can talk about it more openly and more freely. Like, let's not pretend like it's not out there hanging over our heads all the time. I think every conference in America is dealing with this, sort of wondering what's going on in the heads of their existing membership. What's going on in the heads of people who've had an interest in being part of their membership, or just generally. How will the dominoes fall? And what opportunities will it create? The reality is, this is Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. The reality is this: Memphis has been a tremendous member in the American Athletic Conference. The conference has been a platform that has really given them the opportunity for growth and success. But as far as what else is out there, all I can tell you is we're going to focus on what we can control. Commercial appeal comes back with basically kind of doubling down on the question. Is it frustrating to have a school in the conference that's publicly expressed interest in leaving? Like Memphis did in the last live show that we did, an article from the commercial appeal where athletic director Scott did say, we're going to be looking at the Big 12 and the ACC. Pernetti. I, for one, encourage people being open about it. I think that it's healthier for everyone to be open about it and discuss it in the way that even Ed did in his first press conference. It doesn't need to be something that everybody knows is going on in the background, but nobody's discussing or pretending it doesn't exist. But for us, we can't get distracted by anything we don't control. We have to be focused on things that we do control. Commercial appeal. Next question. The idea of a group of 5 football playoff separate from the college football playoff has been floated in the past few months. Is something you'd be interested in? Now, we here at Peek Around the Corner, we've said we don't believe the G5 would ever do that completely separate. Now, they might get kicked out 8 years from now, but for G5 to take their ball and go home and stop with the axis of going in to the expanded football playoffs, we think that is ridiculous. We don't think the G5 would do that. Pernetti answers in the same way we've been talking about it here. No. I don't think it's interesting. The group of 5 agrees unilaterally, without debate, that access to the college football playoffs is hugely important to us. Our coaches are out there recruiting and explaining that. We have an opportunity to compete for a national championship, so we intend to prioritize that above anything. The idea of something like this would be that is additive, not in replacement of. That's lunacy. I think that's the same way we said it here at Peek Around the Corner. Nobody would want to lose that access that we fought so hard to get. However, if there are 4 group of 5 champions that are not able to play in the expanded playoffs, then they can go off and play whatever bowl game their conference is aligned with. Who's to say we couldn't put those bowl games together with the conferences that participate and create a 3-game property where those 4 teams compete for something else? There's not a conference commissioner or athletic director or football coach in the group of 5 that thinks creating something to compete with the college football playoffs is a good idea. It's a terrible idea. The college football playoffs is hugely important to our conference and the entire group of 5. Now, here is the money shot of the article. Here is the money shot of the article. Commercial appeal. The AAC recently added Army as a football-only member after SMU left for the ACC. Are there any discussions about adding another non-football member to replace SMU's other sports? Pernetti. There are many active discussions going on right now about membership. And I think we'll be proactive and aggressive related to what we think are good opportunities in the space for the conference. And I've been really encouraged by the inbound outreach that I've gotten from some institutions in the industry wanting to learn more about what we're doing, where we're headed, and explaining to us why it's interesting. We're looking at a variety of different things. That's as far as I can go. Pernetti. So, first of all, the idea that the G5 are just going to walk out and say we're not going to have access, we're going to take ourselves out of the game when it comes to the college football playoffs, terrible idea. I agree, they're not going to do it. They might not be included in the next contract, but they're included in this contract. And by the way, the G5 does have protections. There's going to be a G5 conference champion, the highest rated one, that is going to be in the college football playoffs from here until the end of the contract to 2031. That is a protection that was given when the G5 schools signed it on the dotted line. The Power 2 conferences, listen up, because holy smokes, talking about misinformation, been a lot of bad information out there. I try to correct some of it. The Power 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, they can change if they agree. If the SEC and the Big Ten agree with each other, they have the power, the governance structure. They have the power, they have the votes to expand the college football playoffs. They have the power. They have the ability. They can go from 12 to 14 members. They can go from 12 to 16 members without the okay of anybody else. They can do that. They can also create more auto bids. But what they can't do, what the Big Ten and the SEC can't do, is strip the protections that was given to the Big 12, the ACC, and the G5 conference for the length of this college football playoff contract. They don't have that. The Big Ten and the SEC cannot go in there and say, oh, no. It's not automatic that an ACC team is going to be in the playoffs. It's not automatic that a Big 12 team is going to make the playoffs. Anyways, there's going to be 5 top-rated conference champions to go into every playoffs for the next 8 years, period. The last part of this article, printed. We're looking at a variety of different things, and that's as far as I can go. Stephen Vitt, the G5 will be pushed out of the playoffs and disconnected by force, so yes, it will be damaging to them. Why would it be damaging to them? Why is playing in the playoffs for the next 8 years damaging to them? Yeah, they might get forced out 8 years from now. But what is damaging about all this exposure they're going to receive during the regular season? What team is going to get to the playoffs? Is it going to be your Ohio Bobcats? I don't see the damage. They're going to make more money in this college football playoffs than they would if they had their own playoffs. And they might create their own little thing beyond the college football playoffs. I don't quite understand this logic, to be honest. Okay. But what I really want to get to on the story, and then we're going to get into the FSU situation. We're looking at a variety of different things. That's as far as I can go. Obviously, the AAC is very active. Obviously, the AAC is looking at what Oregon State and Washington State are trying to build over there in the West. But one of the items I think we're gonna have to take a look at is the AAC thinking about once again adding possibly a basketball affiliation type of school? bringing in a basketball program. I don't know. I don't have candidates. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. They're looking at a variety of different things. They've done it before. Are they going to do it again? Is the Big 12 going to do it? Remember Brett Yormark? The Gonzaga, UConn. Brett Yormark, remember? Brett Yormark believes basketball evaluations are going to skyrocket, going to bring money into the conference. Obviously, if you bring a basketball-only school into the conference, the payout's not going to be the same. UConn probably isn't interested unless they come in as a full member. But I'm just saying, is the ACC willing to do basketball affiliation only type of expansion for a spot or two? Keep an eye on that. There's more to it. I can't really get into it right now, but there's more. I'm not going to get into candidates. But keep an eye on that. I think this whole thing about basketball evaluation skyrocketing is affecting everything here. A little bit, or not a little bit, a whole lot, actually. So keep your eye on that realignment situation. Now, let's go to Florida State. Hold on one second here. Okay. Florida State cannot afford to go scorched earth when leaving the ACC. Florida State has been bold. They went into the courts. I happen to think they're doing very well. Real good. Again, I don't know if there's going to be a settlement reached here. Maybe there is. Maybe that's part of the Josh Pate story. Maybe it is. Maybe we're getting close, or maybe we're not. I don't know. We're trying to interpret Josh Pate's words. Peek around the corner. We've said it. The doors are locked on this settlement. We don't have any word that it's about to happen. I can tell you this. Nothing in regards, and I've been saying this over and over again, the Big Ten does not have an offer out for any of these schools. Neither does the SEC. It's impossible. Their legal departments would never allow it. When you don't know a school, you don't know when they're going to have their own media rights. None of that has happened. No first party talks. Everything is going to be buttoned up. Everything is going to be done right, in accordance to what the Big Ten and the SEC believes how it should be done. Their legal departments. I gave you an example at the beginning of the show, how the Big Ten, how they had to thread the needle on Washington and Oregon. And Washington and Oregon understood that. They did everything they could do for the Pac-12. They were in all those discussions, but they couldn't get a media deal done that satisfied hardly any of the schools. Colorado left first, then Arizona State, Utah. Florida State, I am on your side. And I know it doesn't seem like I am. Just like Washington and Oregon fans thought I was pulling the wool over their eyes, and I wasn't. You can't afford to go scorched earth. Relationships matter. And I'm not talking about the relationship. I'm not just talking about the relationships in the ACC. I'm talking about relationships in the SEC. I'm talking about relationships in the Big Ten. I'm talking about relationships with media partners. Florida State is doing a fantastic job. Michael Alford is doing a fantastic job. But, and I'm only going to push the envelope so far on this. Greg, why do you speak? Florida State can't Greg, why do you speak as if Florida State is going scorched earth? What do your sources consider to be scorched earth? I'll get to that in a second. John Till, Florida State should clap 2 cold ones together, toss them to the crowd, down to third, and walk out with those fingers held high. And yes, music blasting. Thank you for the super chat, John Till. Again, maybe not. Maybe not. But John Till, thank you so much for your generosity once again in here at Peek Around the Corner. Okay, let me give you an example or two. This thing about Clemson and their scheduling, the email, ACC and Clemson, supposedly Florida State, Peter Collins said antitrust. This is an antitrust case. People talking about Florida State taking the ACC court again, once again, for trying to create a competitive imbalance with scheduling and forcing Clemson to do this. Or first of all, none of that is going to happen, and it can happen. There are programs, there is this push and pull, give and take going on between schools and their conferences all the time. There's emails going back and forth all the time. Schools are saying, we don't want to do that. Okay, we'll do that, but we're not going to do that. There is horse trading going on all the time. The bigger brand schools, they can refuse more. It's just the way it is. Clemson can refuse. ACC can push. ACC can write a letter and say, we're disappointed in you. It doesn't matter. The Big Ten, Michigan and Ohio State, they refuse to play Friday night games at home. That's the way it is. Some programs in the Big Ten can't refuse that. That's the way it is. There is no special algorithm that spits out schedules for everybody, that everybody's even throughout the next 5 years of scheduling based upon when they played, Thursday game, rest time, bye weeks. It's impossible. This has been going on forever. Yeah, it's a story, but it can't lead to more prosecution. When the ACC implodes, Florida State cannot go into the Big Ten or the SEC with their hair on fire. I get it. Florida State, I get it. They want vengeance. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. They've been screwed out of the college football playoffs. They've been screwed from the ESPN. The ACC did a horrible job in negotiating their media rights, having a 20-year grant of rights. It's horrific. But you can't burn everything down while you're leaving, because you need to have the relationships in the other two conferences. Florida State. Again, I know once this show is over with, again, I'm going to be just trashed all over the place. But at the end of this story, history is going to treat us just fine. Florida State, you need Northwestern. You need Purdue. You need Minnesota. You need Vanderbilt. You need Arkansas. You need Mississippi State. You need Mississippi. It's relationships. Here's something else here. This is Peter Collins, the Board of Trustees at War Chant. At the end of the day, we are worth more than we are getting paid. A lot more than we are getting paid, Collins said. And Collins is absolutely correct. And I would challenge anybody to tell me we're not. I'm not going to challenge you that. To tell me that we're worth the same amount as some other schools in the conference from a media standpoint. To some degree, that is the essence of Florida State's issue with the conference. Again, if I was giving advice to Peter Collins, I would say we're worth more. I would stand away from pounding on the other schools in the ACC, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I've seen every media statistics, every measurable fan base statistics, and we're in the top 5 nationally, Collins said. At one point, making a comparison to how athletes are now compensated for their name, image, and likeness. I think Florida State should get paid for its name, image, and likeness, and we are woefully underpaid. Okay, that sounds great, right? It sounds great, especially in Tallahassee. We're not getting paid what we're worth, correct. But when you start saying Florida State should get paid for its name, image, and likeness, to illustrate his message, Collins suggested, considering how different the ACC's TV deal would look without Florida State, Clemson, and other top brands. By our underpayment, they're getting overpaid. When that reckoning happens, however, is anyone's guess. When that reckoning happens. By our underpayment, they're getting overpaid. You should have left they're getting overpaid out of the equation. Here's the problem. And we're only going to push the envelope so much here tonight. You gotta build relationships with programs, with athletic directors, with presidents that you have not had a relationship before. You cannot walk into the Big Ten and start saying you should get paid by your name, image, or likeness. You cannot walk into the Big Ten and say you should be getting paid more than Northwestern. I'm telling you, I've said this, and only there is more to this. You cannot come in like a house on fire. You're not going to get the votes. You're not going to get them. You are an incredible university. You are an incredible brand. You're an incredibly valuable brand. But you can't be walking into these. Oregon and Washington did everything the way that the Big Ten needed to happen. Oregon, Washington had their grant of rights ending August 1st of this year. Oregon and Washington are coming in at a discount. You can't be sending the message to these presidents and these athletic directors that you think you should be getting paid by name, image, and likeness, that you should be getting paid by your media worth, that you should be getting paid more than other schools in the conference. that have been there for 100 plus years. Northwestern is building an $800 million football stadium based on projections of this incredible media contract they just signed. They're not giving up a damn penny of it. It don't matter what their TV ratings are. They've been here since day one. You can't say these things. You can't. You can't be saying we are going to file all this stuff against the ACC, take them to court again about the scheduling thing. That's not even a story. That can't. First of all, I don't think Florida State's going to, I think all that is rubbish. But you can't do that. And you can't be coming in and saying that you're worth more than other SEC schools or Big Ten schools, even if you are. You can't do it. Now, I've heard people say, great. The Big Ten might go to unequal revenue, media revenue sharing. It might happen. It might happen if the SEC grows way more in value than the Big Ten, or if the Big Ten goes way more in value than the SEC. Maybe one of the conference will have to make the adjustment. It could happen. Great. Ohio State is sick and tired of making the same amount of money as Purdue in media money. Well, first of all, if that happens, it happens because Ohio State and Michigan says it has to happen. Now, if you've watched the last 50 years of the conference, Michigan and Ohio State are determined to play with their peers and that everybody gets the same media money because it strengthens the conference, blah, 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 blah. Gene Smith has said this over and over again. If it changes, though, it's going to change because of Michigan and Ohio State. It ain't going to get changed by an Oregon, Washington, or Florida State, Clemson, or anybody else. So again, you can't come walking into the conference saying that it hasn't. You don't have to go scorched earth, Florida State. You got to watch your messaging when it comes to your landing spot. When Heather Dinich is saying, I don't know where their landing spot's going to be. Well, I'm just saying, I am not, you may not know it right now, but peek around the corner. We got your back more than anybody else does right now because we're telling you the truth. You've got Illinois athletic director who just came out a couple weeks ago in an interview saying, we got to protect ourselves. We got to protect ourselves. We don't want the Big Ten to fracture. We don't want the top half of the conference to go somewhere else in 8 years. We got to protect ourselves. So the language that the chairman of the board of trustees is using, it ain't working. It ain't working. And Florida State is done they're doing great in Leon County. I think it's going better than I thought it was going to go. I think you're pressuring the ACC. They might have to make a settlement. Just don't burn everything down while you're doing it. I understand the anger. You've been screwed. Florida State has been screwed. But make sure when you're out there, when you've taken your boat out in the ocean, make sure you got a port to go to at the end of the trip. That's all. That's what I got to say. And you got to finesse this. You got to play the political game. You got to. This is why anybody who says, okay, here's the thing. Nothing is done. Nothing is a done deal yet. So, especially from the Big Ten side of things, maybe the SEC has some big coordinated plan with the ESPN that flirts with market allocation. I don't know. Haven't heard it. I haven't heard it. But nothing is done with the Big Ten. Nothing. And I know there are people saying it's been a done deal. It's been a done deal for over a year. Look at this tweet. Florida State has had a spot in the Big Ten for more than a year now. I'm not going to waste my time saying how and why. I've explained it 1,000 times already. So you got all this huge, incredible fan base is getting all right. They think it's not a done deal. I understand if it was, then you could burn everything down, but it isn't. It's not even close. So you got to play the political game. You've got to get people on your side. You've got to get the presidents of the Big Ten and the SEC on your side. I think people in the Big Ten and the SEC completely understand why Florida State and Clemson have done what they've done. But they also don't want someone coming in and saying what Peter Collins is saying. I'm telling you something that national reporters won't say out loud. And that's as far as I'm going to push it tonight. We're going to open up the phone lines. You can talk about anything in college football that you want. You can talk about your team. Look, it is February. It is February. It is July 4th. Next week, everything's going to feel different. Everything's going to taste different, smell different. We're getting closer and closer. Media days, Big 12 media days next week. We're going to be covering that. Everything is getting closer and closer to the most fascinating college football season ever. 2024 with an expanded playoffs. The excitement is building. I'm going to open up the phone lines. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Let it rip. Let me know what is going on. King explained, Greg, I never got the impression that Florida State would come in saying that. Well, Peter Collins is... I'll leave it at that. Bo Weevil, Clemson and Florida State will be in the SEC. Breezy Frey, we have to cut official ties with the ACC before it can happen. We want an apology from Herb Street. I think he is sort of... Didn't he say something like... Maybe he hasn't. I better not go down there. Yeah, what he said... Look, Florida State got screwed. They got absolutely screwed by ESPN. And what really hurt was... And I've talked about this over and over and over again. They spent all this time talking about Florida State's weaknesses in their resume, and they barely ever touched Alabama's weakness in their resume. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was the biggest screw job I have ever seen. Florida State is not attacking the Big Ten. They're not. They're not. But you gotta... All I'm saying, guys, is you can't be saying we want to get paid for our name, image, and like. I understand what they're saying. It's not being received all that good. You can't. And this whole Clemson thing about the schedule, don't go down that road either. That happens all the time in the Big Ten. What happened between the ACC and Clemson happens all the time in the Big Ten. All the time. All the time. It's the biggest non-story I've ever seen, and people are blowing it up, saying that Florida State's going to take them to the court. The FBI is going to... What are you talking about? Florida State is doing a great job in the courts. Let that be the story of the day. You're forcing the ACC into a tight spot. You're forcing them, I think, into a settlement. And when you go to the SEC and the Big Ten, either one, come in like a feather. And then roar like a tiger when you win the conference championship. But come in like a feather. Let me say something. This is why, be careful in the chat. Do not rip on each other. Be careful. You can rip on me, but don't rip on each other. This is why first party talks have to be done before there are any applications and offers. The Big Ten's got to know what Florida State is thinking. Florida State's got to know what the Big Ten's thinking. Florida State has to figure out what the Big Ten needs from Florida State. Florida State needs to figure out, what they need. Big Ten needs to know what they need from Florida State. Same thing with the SEC. There's a lot to talk about. Those discussions haven't happened. They haven't. They can't.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours.
Well, sir, if my phone dies on you, sorry. I've been at the gym and I wasn't going to call in, but I got to call in. I do have some.
If your phone dies, I'll just chalk it up to some conspiracy, or you were taken out by some Big Ten guy or something. Go ahead.
There you go. I do have some pushback. I'm gonna be. I respect you and everything else, but I do have a little pushback. Let's take Peter Collins as where when he was making these statements. He was in a meeting with some of the biggest political power players in Tallahassee and in Florida. Mm-hmm. When there's rumors of an expected move out of the ACC, you have to talk to those folks. You have to explain. He can't come out and say we're about to leave, but he's got to explain things that are about to happen. Okay? He didn't go on ESPN. He didn't go all throughout. Yes, the media covered it, and he knew the media would cover it, but he's got to more or less put it on the record, FSU's plans. So, I mean, should he have used different language? I don't think it would have mattered. He didn't call out every member of the conference, but if some of these people in the meeting that are there are going to be part of the ones footing the bill for FSU's exit, he's got to make his case. He needs to let them know what's going on and what FSU intends to do and why they have to do it, why would be compelled to do it. Mm-hmm. Going back to the other aspects, which you were kind of tiptoeing around, and what it is there's been some insinuations online on War Chant that ACC could possibly be under investigation for antitrust issues. Possibly even worse, some of them might be up for charges. Now, granted, people that post that know that people from the ACC read those stories because they're trying to shake the trees. Whether that's what they're trying to do or whether that's actually going to happen, I don't know. FSU can't really do anything to harm the ACC. In other words, if there's antitrust charges, that comes from the state of Florida. FSU's not doing that. That's A.G. Moody. And so I don't even know if all that's even going to happen or whether or not there's threats going on behind the scenes. I couldn't tell you. But let's look at the other side of the coin here. FSU's been trying for years to remedy this. It's nothing but slow walk. And there's a lot of allegations of ACC malfeasance in the past. Now, FSU has signed that in their affidavits. The only reason none of that has been addressed yet, because we're still in the jurisdiction phase. We're still trying to figure out the venues. They're just now getting to discovery. Clemson's email the other day, Clemson put that in there on purpose. Was that a nothing burger on its own? Of course it was. Was it potentially a warning shot saying, hey, we got a lot more salacious stuff than this. This is nothing. But you notice how we just kind of slipped this into discovery, which had absolutely nothing to do with the case? Let's put this in there, and then let's make sure people notice that it's there. Let's bring it to people's attention. It's a bad look for the ACC. It's a bad look for ESPN. We don't even know what the ACC and ESPN are doing behind the scenes. What if they're continuing, let's just say devil's advocate, the ACC has done nefarious stuff in the past. What if they're continuing to do it? Wouldn't you push back? I'd push back. Do I think FSU's trying to go scorched earth? No. Do I think they're more or less telling the ACC, listen, we're not going to put up with your BS anymore? Let's just handle this. Let's get this done. Because, yeah, we can slip stuff in our discovery too. Because if we signed affidavits to our claims in our legal case, they must have some kind of evidence. They must have something. Because you notice in the Florida case, the ACC lawyers didn't sign anything. They didn't sign to some of their accusations. They didn't sign affidavits because A.G. Moody is a law enforcement. I mean, she's law enforcement in the state of Florida. The ACC is being very careful to tiptoe around certain things. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Could FSU be full of themselves a little bit at the moment and just kicking up dirt? Well, it's possible. Or maybe they're just responding to things that are being done to them. And in that case, people got to be really careful not to get too far out ahead of their skis and just assume it's just FSU. What if it's not? What if they're responding? And what I'm saying is we just don't know. As of right now, there's no belief there's a settlement on the table at the moment. None. And it's almost being insinuated that there's not. So would they want one before they get out, before they announce? Yes. I've heard different rumors either way. I'm really not sure. There's just rumors. But I don't know. There was something else I was going to bring up until I lost my train of thought. But I do want to. Are you still there?
Yeah. No, I'm still here. You're doing a great job. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yep. And there's one thing for people to consider about FSU. The people in charge aren't necessarily just from Tallahassee. Michael Alford's worked in the SEC, in the Big Ten. I've talked to other people about Bruce Warwick. Bruce Warwick is chief of staff. He worked for the Rams for years. He was the one in charge logistically for moving the Rams from St. Louis to Los Angeles, getting the stadium built, getting their facilities built, handling all the logistics on all those types of things. Peter Collins is a private equity guy. Drew Weatherford's a private equity guy. President McCullough is a Harvard guy, and a what's that number one research? Johns Hopkins guy. These folks are connected. They're not going to do anything that's going to harm themselves with a potential home without others already know what they're doing. They're just not going to do that. These are professional folks that have college, pro, business interests. They do business with people within the Big Ten, whether it's administrators or boosters, where all of these people are interconnected. And what I'm saying is, will FSU do things during this process that deserve some pushback? Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they will. Everybody will, because this is contentious. Look how hard they're having to fight just to get out. Oklahoma and Texas, all they had to do was get the networks to come in and negotiate a deal for them.
Yeah.
FSU's having to sue to get out. They're having to fight this stuff in court, and the ACC is trying to get them for close to $700 million plus Clemson. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's because of
the
length of the grant of rights.
Yeah, but it's
supposedly,
if
it goes to 2036, yeah.
Yes, but to assume that this won't get contentious at some point, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people that you referred to in the background. They need to calm it down, because if somebody was coming after them for $700 million, they'd be a lot more pissed off than what FSU is acting. And granted, that's a big organization versus private individuals. I understand everybody has opinions. I have opinions too, but we have opinions based on limited information.
Oh yeah.
We just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I'm not criticizing you.
You can criticize me. That's what this show is for. Yes.
But I am going to say, please don't get too far ahead of your skis. If you have all the information, fantastic. But if you don't, I would just say, hey, there's other information that we don't know. Go ahead. I'll cut you off again.
No,
there's a delay.
It isn't that we have all this type of information. I don't know anything about this ACC, antitrust, FBI knocking on their door, whatever that was all about. I will say
it could be real. I mean, it could be real. I mean, I don't even know.
But okay.
Or it could be a threat. But FSU wasn't making that threat. I can tell you that. I don't have to go too much into it. FSU wasn't making that threat. There's others that have insinuated that it would happen. The others that have insinuated that would happen have a really good track record. I don't know if they've been right on everything, but they've been all right on a lot of things. But I don't know. They also sometimes use dramatic language to help influence the results, But anyway, go ahead.
And that dramatic language might be hurting in other places. But let me say this. Immaculate said, comparing Florida State and Clemson to Texas and Oklahoma or any other Pac departures is an apples-oranges comparison. And this is one of the problems we're having with this story. And I've said this. This is not like the other stories. It's completely different. So when people say this is a done deal, SC, Florida State's, I'm okay with people speculating. I've speculated. I've had to take that odds down. But when people are reporting that it's a done deal, and it's been a done deal for over a year ago, and people are eating that up, my goodness, it's not even. We're not even in that. That isn't. This is a completely different story because of the obvious differences. Number one. Number two.
Well,
hold on. Number two.
No, yeah.
I cannot possibly push this any more than I have tonight. But the number, look, the SEC, the Big Ten, these conferences, you know, they're made. They're gonna make a whole bunch of money in the next media contract. You know, they're made. So what? We can splice the numbers and the spreadsheets. We can do this. We can do that. We can do this. And what's really going to determine what happens is relationships. And I cannot say that enough. It's all about the relationships. I understand Florida State has Richard McCullough. He's well respected. All athletic directors, well respected. All these ACC schools that could get out there, well respected and everything. All I'm saying, man, is the relationships matter. And
Sure.
the
Florida
State's got to thread the needle. They've got to get out of the ACC. They got to hit the ACC hard. They've been doing it in the courts. I think they've been doing a great job, but they also got to massage things in the SEC and the Big Ten. When these go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, when these reporters are saying we're don't quite sure where this is going, we don't know who's really interested. I mean, there is a lot of truth there. People, none of this is a done deal. So these Florida State's got to work on these universities, and they can. They can't have first party talks with Big Ten officials, but obviously Richard McCullough can have first party talks with Northwestern's president, and I'm sure he has.
Sure.
These Big Ten and the SEC schools, they're going to protect themselves as well. It's going to be dicey. So I don't think Peter Collins should have used, and I know this because I did not just make this up. I've been told that some of this hasn't hit well. That's part of this May 23rd, May 28th flip. Some of this has not hit well. And there's a whole bunch of other factors that I can't get into that has nothing to do with Florida State. But I'm just saying, relationships are going to matter. Got to thread the needle, Florida State. In some parts, you're doing an excellent job. Go ahead, sir.
You might want to reach out and this is up to you if you wanted to. As far as realignment from the war chant side, Gene Williams, the founder and owner, that would be a good person to talk to. And then also, and not saying that you need information, I'm just saying it would be another good source. You referenced Jeff last week, and Jeff, what I'm saying is I'm not saying this to disagree with you. I'm saying is there's information that's going out there that people are hearing that are completely contradictory, and I'm not even getting into the miscommunication campaign rumor. You understand what I'm saying? Because you referenced Jeff in his show the other day. Later on in that hour, he absolutely said he believes there's an offer from the Big Ten to the FSU. So what I'm saying is people are hearing lots of things. And I'm not saying that to discount the media. I'm saying is people are hearing lots of things. And Gene, last year, one reason it was really filtered through through FSU or through especially War Chant, and I can't remember where that post was, but he has contacts in the Big Ten and contacts at Fox. And at the time, his contacts at Fox was saying that FSU and Clemson were wanted by Fox. And then also contacts within the Big Ten. I thought he said FSU was definitely desired by the Big Ten. So in other words, we're not getting it off of random stuff. We're getting it off of him. We're getting off of other insiders. We're getting off of other sites and everything else. So when you get pushback, there's a reason there's pushback. It's because people that are quote-unquote media people have been saying it because they're hearing it. Now, has something changed? I don't know. Was that never the truth? I don't know. What I'm saying is it's, and I'm not discounting you or your sources. You and I have had that discussion. I'm just saying there's lots of sources out there, and that's why people are pushing back on you in some occasions, because they're like,
we did not say that there's not. There is interest of course, the Big Ten has interest in Florida State.
sure,
I think people are completely misrepresenting what we're saying here at the Ground the Corner. They're on the expansion list. They've been on the expansion list. They've been vetted. They haven't been vetted and cleared. They haven't been given an offer. It's illegal. It would never happen. It would never happen in a million years. Not in this story.
Anytime some. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
No, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna let you go ahead.
It's just not possible. It's just not possible. It's not possible.
Sure.
The Big Ten is so conservative, is so cautious when it comes to this stuff. It's not. It's so. So I think maybe sometimes people are using the word offer differently. There's interest, of course there is. Florida State is Florida State. You know, of course there is.
Sure.
But there's no offer. It's not even. It can't. It could not be possibly true. So.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
I'm done. Go ahead.
There's a delay. Your voice fades out, and I thought you stopped talking, and then I hear your voice again.
I'm good.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
I promise you, I'm not trying to talk over you.
It's okay.
Even Jeff, when he was talking the other day, he even clarified his statement. He said, offer, is there an offer on paper? No. Wink and a nod is what he's referring to, and that's what everybody kind of assumed, a wink and a nod. But you know how it is. People don't want to say wink and a nod. They say offer. And they say offer. Whether that's the proper use or not, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, we might end up in the SEC. I don't think so. Everything I've heard and even heard recently by people I trust, I don't think so. I don't think the relationship's any better than it was months ago. And there's people that on that side have a lot better connections than me, and they're just like, no, they're hearing quite the opposite. And so I don't know. I think Greg Swain, he listens to your show a lot. I think he said FSU is supposed to do an exit announcement give or take around the 12th, and expect some type of a deal for them to go to the SEC. And it's like, if it happens, so be it. I mean, if it happens, but
even though I would go this far. Florida State has been vetted. The Big Ten has evaluation. The numbers are good for Florida State. Okay? I don't even think there's a wink and a nod. And the reason why I say that is Florida State knows they're on the They know they're an expansion. They know they've been vetted. They know they're on the expansion list. They know their value. But the problem is when people say this has been already done, they've been saying this for quite a while. Last year, this year, 6 months ago, wink and a nod. You know how many different Big Ten presidents have come and gone in 6 months? They haven't had these. The University of Minnesota just put their new president in now. There's Big Ten universities that don't have those things don't happen to the end game. And this really hasn't even. They haven't had these first party talks. The first party talks are real. They're real events. They happen all the time before schools get an offer and agreement. It happened with Colorado. It happened with Robbins at University of Arizona president. He had first party talks numerous with the Big 12. These things have to happen. They haven't happened for Florida State and for anybody else. That's what I'm saying. That someone's got to say it because there's so much of this other counter going the other way. That's what I'm saying.
Well, who's the one who makes the decisions on those kinds of things? I know that the presidents cast a vote.
Yeah.
But is it the board of trustees or board of governors for those universities that actually makes those decisions?
It's different for every. It can be different, but
Okay.
generally it's the president.
Okay.
But
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm asking,
yeah,
because
it's it's, and they're going to get numbers from Fox, and the commissioner's going to go, yeah, we should do this, and the presidents are going to look at it, and there's a lot of, it doesn't, like, the Oregon-Washington thing could happen so quickly because they were cleared and vetted. It was a thumbs up if a certain situation happened. That situation happened. When the situation happens that Florida State can clear themselves, when they know exactly when they're going to get their rights back, that's when the Big Ten's going to say, let's talk. SEC's going to say, let's talk. And Florida State's going to say, we're happy to talk, baby. Then that's when the story picks up on a different level. But there is no winks and nods because there's not hardly anybody there who's been able to wink and nod. It's, anyways, I think we've beaten that to death, but
I got you.
Appreciate the call, JD.
I appreciate you letting me call in and vent just a little bit. Like I said, I respect you, respect your show, and I consider you a friend. And like I said, I sometimes we just disagree a little bit, but like I said, little friendly debate's a good thing.
You got it. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Have a good day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day.
Call from
Crab cakes and football.
Crab cakes and football. The floor is yours. Can you hold on for just one moment, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul Clifton, if you think that nobody's talking behind the scenes, you're crazy in this stage and they have greed and kid in hand. Come on, man. Yeah, people are talking. People are talking. But there's no first party talks. And and you know what happens when there's first party talks? Do you know what happens in a first party talk? Lawyers are there. I can tell you, there is no lawyers involved in Big Ten meetings with any ACC schools going on right now. Guys, there's two things I know in life. One, there should not be cheese on a hamburger. And number two, I know how the process works in the Big Ten. So, anyways, go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
You should rename yourself Picasso or Da Vinci because you painted a good picture today.
Yeah,
I
mean, tried.
No, you did a really good job because even I can understand it. Because words matter. What the president of FSU, I think it was, said, his name escapes me, said probably put pause into some schools because the last thing they want to do is fracture their conference up with that type of mentality. And then you got Notre Dame and the question that you couldn't answer in the very beginning, and you said maybe by not answering it, you kind of sort of answered it. Makes sense with the relationships mattering between the schools that were listed there. I'm not saying that I figured it out.
Are you saying you're connecting some dots, crab cakes and football? Is that what you're saying?
I haven't played Connect Four or Connect the Dots so hard in my life, but I'm starting to get it.
Got it. And I think you are too. I think you are too.
But so yeah, and the relationships matter part. I'm a Maryland Terrapin fan. When we left the ACC, we severed a couple of relationships. Duke and Maryland, I mean, they're going to start playing in women's basketball this year finally, but the men's sports refuse to play each other if they can help it. They don't play in lacrosse. They don't play in basketball. They won't play in football. They won't even talk to each other because of the way everything went down when we left 10 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, that's the only school that I think that we really have a severed relationship with. But it's still, to this day, 10 years later, I might finally be coming together a little bit, but we're still another 10 years off from even healing them wounds. I mean, so yeah.
And the thing is,
matter.
Maryland is a voting, obviously, a fully invested member of the Big Ten, a voting member of the Big Ten. So the relationship with Maryland is important with whatever schools are trying to get in the Big Ten. You've got a president that just left from the University of Miami. Now he's the president of UCLA, or will be. I don't know what the starting date is. You know what? It'd probably be a good idea to, I don't know what the relationship was between Virginia and Miami's president, or North Carolina and a Miami president, a Clemson and Miami's president, Julio Frank, and or Florida State and the president. But now he's going to be the president of UCLA. Another change. You've got so many moving pieces in the Big Ten. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So whatever was true 6 months ago, and it wasn't true 6 months ago, but let's pretend it was true. It might not be true today. There's too many. That's why you don't make decisions until the last moment that you need to make it. When it comes to conference expansion, you don't make the decision until it's like all the way down the track, and then you make it, or you don't. Look what the Pac-12 in Texas. That thing was all the way down the track until Texas pulled out. There are other times conferences pull out because they see something in the data of the university that they wait. Things aren't decided till the very last second. So nothing has been decided in this big story, long story. It's going to be going on for a lot longer. But go ahead, Crab Cakes and Football.
Yeah, so with me connecting all the dots, I've gotten to the dot where, I'm just going to give advice to the president of FSU. Don't say anything. Because every time...
No, the president is fine. The president is fine. I'm talking about the board of trustees.
Whoever it was that made that comment. And sorry if I
no
used
problem.
The wrong person there. And but don't say anything, because saying things like, we want our own, the name, image, value, and everything else. That brought pause, I think, to a lot of not just Big Ten, also SEC schools, because SEC's proud, the Big Ten's proud. Last thing they want to do is break up. They want to get who they get and battle each other on the gridiron or whatever sport they're playing. I don't think they want to go and start having distrust between teams in Northwestern and Ohio State because Ohio State's a better football program than Northwestern. Never mind that Northwestern is investing $800 million into a stadium, or things like that. So, everybody has their value, and it's different values in different sports. And sometimes a Northwestern can sneak up and get a runner-up Big Ten title, like they did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Yeah.
So, I think it's unfair to just say the same 6 teams for both the SEC and the Big Ten and forget the other 12 teams that are now part of one, and 10 teams that's part of the other, because they're not an Alabama or Ohio State on the football. But when it comes to Florida State, they're going to request whenever they get around that time is right to request, and they're going to put in their application for whoever they put their application in for, and they'll either get denied or accepted, most likely accepted. But right now, we just don't know. And as much as I would love to be a homer for the Big Ten and say, hey, we would love for them to come, I could see why they would go to the SEC. And with the Notre Dame piece sitting out there and the relationships matter unanswered question from earlier has got me going, okay, there's more to this than even I'm thinking about. So with that said, I'm going to let you go, man.
Got it. Appreciate it.
And
thank you.
have fun.
Thank you, Mr. Carrickford. Almighty Finn. Can Florida State get out of the ACC anytime soon? How about that question? I'll answer it in a second.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you hold on for a moment, please?
Sure thing.
I appreciate it. Almighty Finn asked the question, can Florida State get out of the ACC anytime soon? How about that question? Yeah, they can leave. The soonest they can leave, according to the ACC bylaws, is July 1st, 2025. They would have to file a notice of withdrawal by August 15th, on or before August 15th, here 2024. So yeah, they can get out. The question is, what if Florida State does file a notice of withdrawal, which means they write a letter and they send it to the commissioner and to all the presidents in the ACC saying we're leaving. What is Florida State's plan if they do that without having their media rights, without their ownership of their media rights? What is their plan? They got to have a backup. They got to have some plan for July 1st of 2025. If they do it tomorrow, if they do it next week, if they file this notice of withdrawal, which many Seminole fans says they're going to do, and they don't have their media rights, what is their plan? I think it gets... I think it's very risky. I don't know what that does for Florida State. I don't know how much more pressure that puts on the ACC and the ESPN. I happen to think it doesn't. A lot of smart people think it does. I don't quite understand the argument. No one has really told me what is the advantage of doing that versus what you're doing now. Because what you're doing now, I think, is working. And if you file a notice of withdrawal, you may feel good. But what does that actually do? Now you are a withdrawal member. Now you're labeled a withdrawal member. Now you can't go to some meetings. Now you're going to have to pay some exit fee up front already. And now you don't know exactly who's going to distribute your content. It's probably going to remain with ESPN. You don't know where your time... Are you going to have to be independent? Because you're not going to be able to talk with the Big Ten and the SEC until they know when you have your media rights. This is not the Oklahoma-Texas story. This is not the USC story. This is not Washington and Oregon story. Immaculate, the floor is yours. Thank you for your patience.
Of course, and happy Independence Day, Greg.
You too, sir.
And I will try to be concise as possible. I know Jamie wants to get on, and folks probably would love to hear what she has to say on the SEC. Few things to talk about, but based upon what happened here, I just kind of want to touch real quickly again on the reasoning for FSU to do what they're doing. I know everyone kind of knee-jerk reactions. Oh, you sign a contract, you live up to it, and generally speaking, yes, that's the honorable thing to do. But there are times when contracts, they're made in a time under certain circumstances and context, and those circumstances change drastically to where a contract is just no longer feasible or whatnot. And even in business, they get redone, the settlements happen, they get made, where they're not enforceable by courts. This happens a lot. This contract between the ACC and the ESPN, that was signed in 2012. That was before the CFP even existed. It was an entirely different age. I mean, the payouts were much more equal. A lot has happened since then, and a lot more is even going to happen in 2036. So expecting the likes of Florida State or Clemson or anyone else who wants to get out to just look at this and go, well, we signed this deal, I guess we shouldn't, push back on it. That's not how contracts work either. So to say, with the Texas and Oklahoma situation where they were almost 1 year out, the actual comparison is the fact that they only had to wait one more year, and everyone involved with that wanted them out so badly, so quickly, because things were changing so drastically in such fast motion that they paid to get them out a year early. So if there's worthwhile and it's good natured to get them out just a year early, I think it's reasonable for Florida State and folks to look at this and say,
we cannot wait 12 years. 12 years. That's the same time from now back to when that deal was started. Look at all that has changed.
Yeah.
12 years. It's not feasible. So I get it. They got to make good on it somehow, but they're absolutely well within their rights at this point to look at this and say, this is not feasible to last this long in this deal. So that's it on that. I don't know if you want to talk on that or not, but I don't want to harp.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think them going to the courts and being bold, and I think they've got a good case, and I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I honestly, I've told some people in private that I think that we might get a settlement, and that could maybe even be in the works. Yep. But you're just kind of at a right now where there's still some things that are not settled that are higher up in the chain priority, to where it'll almost be impossible to know for sure, like, should we sign for this amount? So it's probably pretty hard to fine tune the final agreement when you have the NCAA settlement thing still looming. Like, where's this judge at? Are we going to get a certification? Are we going to get a partial certification? Are some things going to get struck out of there? If there's some aspects of the governance that are no longer going to be there in the future that maybe some of these schools are depending upon, because they know what's in there. They're in the NDA. They know everything that is in that future governance plan that we don't know. So there might be part of that they're planning on. So without having that in stone, so to speak, I don't think you can make any kind of a settlement. So this is where I would then kind of align with you. And JD, I consider a friend, and all of our FSU friends, I would say this is where I would align with Greg in that if that's really what is holding things up, and maybe the settlement could be penned real quick afterwards, it might not be a great idea to be going after the ACC so hard when the reality might be is you just can't get a settlement right now. And I don't know. And some of it might just be for show, right? For boosters, for who knows, just watching.
I mean, if you're going to reach a settlement, that means that those ACC schools are going to have to acquiesce. Yeah. There's only so much. Florida State has made their point. They're doing great in the courts. I don't think they should. I get why Florida State fans disagree with me, but I don't think they should be fanning the flames, even with Boston College, Wake Forest saying that you're overpaid, we're under. You've already made your point. You're in the courts. Hopefully there's settlement talks. Hopefully everybody's interest can be met. And then you go in and you do it the correct way, talking with the Big Ten and the SEC. Don't, again, doing anything with antitrust, suing the ACC, whatever. Don't do any of that. That's not going to, please don't do any of that. It's already, this is going to be a very highly political process at some point. You want friends on your side. Don't burn everything down. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and some of that, I do think to some degree settlement talks are happening. That doesn't mean we're at an official table having official talks, but just like we talk about winks and nods and other things, at some point in time, some conversations have happened, whether that's official with attorneys or not, or between attorneys saying, well, my client might be interested in this, if, one of those little side talks. And so maybe this is part of that. Like, well, we're kind of stuck on this number, and we could do this over here if, we really wanted to, but we don't want to. Like, it's just like, and JD was kind of alluding to that it might be some kind of a, soft threat, maybe move the needle a little bit in their direction. But I just, my caution to folks is if they're really expecting that to just pop up any day, I don't expect it to happen at all until we get the NCAA settlement certified, until we get some movement on that area, until we get some NLRB, because you mentioned, relationships matter. And in my opinion, and I alluded to this in a post to you on X, the relationship that matters the most right now, and many people are going to hate this, and they're maybe even say it doesn't make sense, but it's Notre Dame and Stanford.
And North Carolina.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I'm just saying I think Notre Dame and Stanford are literally linked arm in arm right now. But yes, also because North Carolina is high in desire. They have two major conferences that want them. Notre Dame has, I don't know about the SEC, but the Big Ten definitely wants them. And they're in a situation right now where it kind of looks like they're also maybe looking at something else as their first pick, whatever that might be. They both have that high demand status. I don't know if there's anyone else that does at this point in time. I know people make this mad, but I don't think Clemson's really in demand by the Big Ten. Maybe by the SEC. FSU, people are people. I don't know if the SEC actually wants them. I mean, that's a kind of a burned bridge. So if the Big Ten does like you, but you're only wanted by one, you're not high in demand. So there's no reason for them to push at this point in time. So to me, it's really with the settlement, with NLRBs, and with all the privates knowing what the heck they want to do. If people are really looking for something, I know the FSU thing is up front and point, and everyone is most interested in that, and I get that. But I just don't think that that's going to happen until some other things happen first. So I don't know what to think about that, but that's just for people to watch, because it's kind of, I know some people having frustration over this and saying, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Well, if you're looking for something to happen sooner rather than later, watch that. So that's pretty much it.
All right, man. Thank you, Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good one.
Great call again, sir. Great call by Immaculate. Ricky gifted a membership. Holy smokes. Thank you so much. I did not see who was gifted the membership. Hold on one second.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie, can you hold on for a second?
Absolutely. My
Thank you.
cheese is melting on the burger as we speak, so I can hold on.
That's beautiful. I'm trying to get caught up here. Yeah, I don't see who was gifted the membership, but anyways, Ricky, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate it. And whoever was gifted, please say thanks to Ricky for his generosity. Ricky and whoever was gifted it, you are hereby officially knighted. Cloak and Dagger, thank you so much, Ricky. I appreciate it. R Web, an early peak member once again. R Web, you are hereby knighted, Cloak and Dagger. Thank you for becoming a member of the College Football Peek Around the Corner Cloak and Dagger member only videos are now available to you, R Web. Go check it out. I think we'll be dropping one probably Saturday or Sunday. Thank you, R Web, for your generosity. Thank you, Ricky, for your generosity. And one other thing, I see somebody made the comment in the comment section, and I get this about once a week. What's going to happen, Greg, with your show when the Florida State stuff is over with? And guys, there's always going to be big stories in college football. We go where the story goes. We are so fortunate here at Peek Around the Corner during the football season last year. Because of you guys, our numbers skyrocketed. It was crazy. Our watch parties were fun. We cover everything in college football because we loved everything in college football. I am not worried about content. College football is a content giver constantly. It's full of drama. The Holy Smokes Theater, the drama in those theaters are not going to be just about realignment. They're going to be about other things in college football. There are stories out there that I haven't even been able to get to. So I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about where the show is going. It is only going big. Thanks to you guys. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Well, Greg, first off, I want to thank, I want to wish you and the Little General and the PATC community a happy 4th of July. And I also want to thank Donnie, my awesome Ohio State friend who just gifted me a membership. I don't know if you want to say something right now.
I just saw that. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Donnie. And Donnie, Jamie, you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Jamie's already thank you, Donnie. Donnie, thank you for your generosity. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Jamie. Did anybody hear my song today, by the way? Did anybody check it out? I put out I sang what did I sing anyway? My Country 'Tis of Thee. I put it out on episode 405 for everybody to hear it. Hopefully you guys did not lose your sense of balance or your hearing when you heard it, but I put it out there. Jamie, go ahead. The floor is yours.
No problem, Greg. And not to sound like an advertisement, but for people that don't know, don't have the membership, the Cloak and Dagger videos are great. They are super excellent. So I just wanted to say that while while that was up there. So I did want to say, I mentioned some of it because I thought you might be out of time. So just to kind of give an SEC perspective, I know I sent you, first of all, a great video on the Paul Feinbaum. He was talking with the Oklahoma president, was there, and the Oklahoma athletic director. And he was kind of talking about how the whole, and also, Sankey was there too, SEC commissioner. And they were talking about the process of when it started and going through. And one of the interesting things was at the end, the Oklahoma president was talking about how they had an offer and Texas had an offer from different conferences. But because of the relationships and the relationship that they had working together, they decided they wanted to stay together, and they both joined the SEC. So, you talk about how important relationships are. Now, I want people, it's so easy. We sit there and think, well, we're going to take 2 or we're going to take 4, and everyone's got decided already, like you said, who's going where. So I just wanted to give you some information on the SEC and kind of how everything's worked. They just added Texas and Oklahoma. We know that the SEC, they're not crazy about becoming the super national conference that the Big is, right? So the Big has to get as big as they are because they want to be a national brand, and it makes sense. The SEC wants to stay regional. So in that media deal that just started when Texas and Oklahoma came, so literally it's only 4 days old, they can add 2 schools where ESPN pays 100%. And the whole plan is, of course, to go to a 9-game schedule to help, pay for that. So if the SEC, in other words, was to add more than 2 at that point, they would want ESPN to do the same thing. And what I'm getting at here is the way they look at this. The SEC expanded in 91. They were wanting Arkansas and FSU. And, of course, we know JD's talked about it and other people talked about it. It ended up being South Carolina. And then, of course, they expanded again in 2012 with Texas A&M and Missouri. So the way they look at this is they would like, if it's possible, to have UNC in time for 2026 if they can get them. So the way they look at it is they kind of look at UNC +1 with Oklahoma and Texas as a 4-school expansion right there. So unless something changes, more than likely, at least at first, immediately, all you would see would be UNC +1 for the SEC. More than likely, there's not going to be 4 eatings at one time from the ACC. That's just what I've been told. Now, things can change, of course, and everything. But, yeah, I mean, the SEC is really, really wanting to get UNC in Virginia, but even more important than that, they want to lock down North Carolina. So if UVA isn't available, they might go after a UNC and a Duke, lock down North Carolina where they have the SEC network. They're building a new operations center, all that's in Charlotte. They want that being SEC country. And I know, Greg, you've talked about reasons for that. And if you just look at the population explosion, not to mention the growing media markets and everything there, And then on top of it, the brand power that those schools have, especially, UNC and Duke, if that ended up happening in basketball content for the SEC network. So I just wanted to kind of give everyone, there might not be a 4 Edings, and that really hurts, a Florida State possibly and a Clemson, because that right now, the SEC is more interested in grabbing that. It is the final frontier. North Carolina is the final frontier for the SEC. So that's going to be priority one over any kind of, no offense to Florida State. They're a great school, and so is Clemson, but just kind of letting people know what's going on there.
Got it. Beautiful. Thank you,
I
Jamie.
Everyone has an amazing 4th of July. I hope you have a great time tonight. Be safe. You don't want to end up being like our friend from the Giants and have missing fingers, anything like that. So just everybody have a great barbecue. And I noticed when you asked me to hold on, Greg, you said it was beautiful when I told you I had that piece of cheese melting on my hamburger on the grill right now. So we're glad you've converted, my friend.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Take care.
Whoops, I put the wrong music on. Holy smokes, what am I doing? Thank you, Jamie. Sean said, you should have done God Bless America. Well, Sean, I did try to do God Bless America. I did both of them. And neither of them, both renditions went pear-shaped. So I chose the one that was less pear-shaped. I don't know. I got to be honest. I did not do good. I was not on voice today. I'm not sure what's going on with me. It's probably... I'm not sure. But anyway, I sang that song and it just didn't go well. So again, I'm singing a cappella and it's... Anyway, so that's my excuse. That's why I did not do God Bless America. Kyle Visser, Greg, can you address what she just said? She said offers from different conferences. Is that in conflict with what you have said? No, because what I have said is, if on that day when Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC, if they would have called the Big Ten instead, they both would have been members of the Big Ten. Texas had long, just like Notre Dame, Texas has had offers cleared and vetted from everybody, from the ACC, from the Big Ten, from the Pac-12. Oklahoma, not so much. So I think that was their way of saying, but there was reports, I don't remember, I'll look it up. There was public reports even that, yeah, Oklahoma, if Oklahoma and Texas would have called, I mean, just in like 2012, 2011, 2010, Oklahoma was part of the 6 teams out there that were trying to get into the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was all for it. Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, a few other schools. But economically, the Big Ten could not make it work. So, yeah, I don't think it's... That's how I can answer that question. I don't... if Texas calls you and says, we want to be in your conference and here's Oklahoma, you're in. Except for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 said no to Oklahoma. The Pac-12 absolutely blew it so many times. Oklahoma has more national championships in football than Texas. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But we're talking about value and all that stuff. Thank you, Paul. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and open up your notifications so you know when we're coming on live, because we can come on live at any time. If there's breaking news tomorrow morning, we're coming on live. During the lunchtime, we're coming on live. During the evening time, we're coming on live. So you gotta keep your head on a swivel, open up those notifications, and please subscribe to our channel. We're going to close it up. We've been on the air for over 2 hours on the 4th of July. A lot of viewers, still have 270 in the studio. Thank you so much for coming. I do appreciate it. Florida State cannot afford to go scorch earth. You're doing fine. Florida State is doing good. They're doing good in the courts, exerting pressure on the ACC. Just make sure when you're doing all this, create relationships with the SEC and the Big Ten presidents, because nothing has been decided. Going into the next week here, going into this weekend, holy smokes. Big 12 Media Days coming up. College football just right around the corner. I still have to give you my SEC order of finish predictions. And I am afraid. I am afraid. I'm afraid to be a legend. I'm afraid I'm going to blow it in the SEC. I don't know. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult. I'm struggling. I've got all the work done. I just can't quite get 2 through 8. Texas, they're probably going to be my number 2 team. It's more through 8. 3 through 8. That's where I'm struggling. That is where I'm struggling. Georgia's number 1. Georgia's number 1, obviously. Okay, anyways, we're going to close it up. Thank you, everybody. Have a happy 4th. Happy Independence Day, July 4th, 1776. We told King George, we're out of here. And so are we here at Peek Around the Corner. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.